Hi, this is Will Marshall. I'm doing a video explaining a technique I use inside Ableton for splitting a audio signal into high frequencies and low frequencies, and splitting it completely losslessly so that if you don't change anything and you add the high and low back together, it will be the same as if you hadn't split it. This technique is really useful for DJing in that you can apply effects only to the high end of your audio signal so that it doesn't touch your bass. And you can do that nicely without mucking around with excessive sort of high pass and low pass filters. And it's really useful for remixes, especially if you're not remixing from stems but just in MP3 or something, because it lets you chop sounds out of the mix perfectly and neatly in a way that's really hard with filters and other bits and pieces. So this technique relies on a concept called phase cancellation, which is actually pretty simple, so I'll explain it quickly. We've got here a picture of a sine wave. It's a very simple audio signal. This is a very simple example, but the same principle works no matter how complicated your audio signal is. Basically, we've got a sine wave and it goes up and down in a regular way. Now, it goes from 1 to -1 or -5, it doesn't matter. The point is positive, negative, and 0 in the middle. Nice and simple. So if we take a copy of this sine wave and we invert it vertically, we get a curve that does exactly the opposite. It goes down, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, and then it goes up. So the inverted signal is always doing the exact opposite thing. Now if we add those two signals together, obviously because this signal is going up and the inverted signal is going down, they add together and produce a straight line, which is no audio signal at all. So this is called phase cancellation. It means you change the phase of the audio, you invert it, and it cancels itself out if you mix it back with itself, which, as you can imagine, is really useful because it's mathematically perfect. It works completely always. It's very nice. So we use this inside Ableton. It's very simple. Just a little rack, which I will put online so you can download this rack and have a play with it, use it in your own sets, use it for your own effects and stuff. So inside the rack, it's called a splitter. We have a low channel and a high channel, and we have a frequency knob that sets the cutoff point between the low and the high channel. So low is really simple. It's just got a low pass filter, and the frequency cutoff of that low pass filter is controlled here. And that's it. So it just chops the audio out with the low pass filter and then lets it go through. High is a bit more complicated. So it's got a rack in here with two chains. So the first chain is the pure audio. So the audio is coming through, going into high, going through here, going through chain, and there are no effects or anything. So it's the original audio signal, whatever you're sending into here. The top chain has the same low pass filter as low. So as you can see, it's also mapped to frequency. So they're always at the same place, so they always do the same processing on the same audio signal to produce the same results, which is important. Then after that, we've got a Ableton utility, and down the bottom there are two buttons, phase left and phase right. These invert the left and right channels, so if we turn them both on, we've inverted both channels. So this audio signal coming through, this sort of low signal, is inverted. Now if you know how chain selectors work, these two signals are going to be added together once the different effects have been applied. And in this case, what we're doing is we're adding the inverted low signal to the original signal. And that inverted low signal is actually going to chop itself out of the original signal and only leave everything that is not it. So essentially, we take the bass, we invert the bass, and then we add that back to the original audio signal, and it actually chops the bass out and leaves everything that's not the bass. And that's basically it. So if we play a track here, I move the frequency around, you can't hear it. I turn the splitter off, you can't hear it. I turn it back on, you can't hear it. But if I lower the volume on high, you can hear it. So obviously only low is playing through, so the higher I turn it up, the more sound comes through. And if I do the opposite, same thing happens. So yeah, you can see that's mathematically pure, and unless you actually do something to change one of these two signals, it will always add back together to the original sound, which makes it really useful for DJing and stuff like that. So a typical example of what I might want to do with this effect would be taking the high thing. So I'll just shrink this down. What are we looking at? Remove that, remove that. Where am I looking at? Yes, so this is the high channel. So after the high splitter, which gives us the high signal, I'm going to put a ping pong delay, just for the sake of it. If I do something like that with a ping pong delay. So if we play this again, you can hear the ping pong delay. If I do that, it's only on the very top end because the low pass filter isn't perfect. And as I turn it down, that effect applies to more and more of the audio signal. So yeah, as you can hear, the important thing about that, or the really useful thing about that, is you can apply effects to your melodies and your snares and all your sort of higher instrumentation without touching your bass or your kick drum. And I originally got this idea because I noticed a lot of DJs were limited in when they could use their effects because they didn't want to kill the dance floor by putting a delay or a phaser or something on and have that affect the bass kick and make it lose its punch. So they ended up only really using effects during breakdowns and other situations where accidentally killing the bass or the kick, well, there isn't a bass or a kick. So you can manipulate the audio without worrying about that. And I think this is a nice sort of extension of that, where you can select the frequency range you're applying the effect to and only do it to that. So the most common scenario would be isolating the bass and the kick and keeping them dry and unchanged, while applying effects to the upper end so that your melody can go all crazy and do all sorts of strange things without ruining your sound. Obviously, there are other things. I mean, you can use it to sweep effects down across the frequency spectrum or sweep the effects away. The frequency knob gets a lot of hammering, as you can imagine, and you want to be aware that you can change it, and then it's absolutely fine to change it. Yes, you can sweep effects in and out. You can apply effects just to the bass. You can do, like, actually one of the cool things you can do is beat repeat one audio channel but not the other audio channel, which is kind of cool. So if I bring that in and do something like this, what's a good beat repeat? Interval 1 bar grid, something like that. How does this work? I can never remember. Okay, so if we play here, so yeah, you can hear there that we can like beat repeat or destroy the top end of the audio, but the bass keeps going. So yeah, really flexible effect. I'm going to release this splitter rack, not the actual effects, but all my effects are free. If you want them, you can download them and add them to it. Release a splitter rack so you can take that and do whatever you want with it. Yeah, thank you very much.